very important hearing on same-sex marriages has been taking place in the Supreme Court. I believe it will now go to a constitution bench. But in their arguments today, the petitioners told or urged the Supreme Court to make the Special Marriages Act gender neutral. The petitioner said that or argued that the Special Marriages Act says any two persons and that this shouldn't be determined on the basis of a couple being heterosexual, since it's not specified that that must be the case. The petitioner said that the right to marry cannot be held back on the basis of sex. Now, the centre has opposed same-sex marriages. The centre has told the Supreme Court that same-sex marriages are against the Indian concept of marriage and that let Parliament decide on this. The centre has said that the ruling, or whatever it is, will have a huge impact on our society, on India. Sunil Prabhu joins us now for more on this. So, Sunil, bottom line, it's going to be a larger bench which is going to hear this, and once and for all, one way or the other, we will know, we'll get an answer, presumably, to one of the most critical issues that we've seen in the Supreme Court and other courts for decades.
That's right, Vishnu. Firstly, that this matter will be heard on the 18th by a 5-judge bench. It will be live telecast so that the entire country and everybody can watch those deliberations of both for the petitioner as well as for the government from the Solicitor General about the arguments that they have for and against. And finally, of course, the matter will be decided by the judges themselves. Having said that, we got a small preview today when the 3-judge bench was hearing it. The Chief Justice of India saying, we want to know how do we formulate it, what's the statutory framework. And the government has said to take the legislative route. So we heard the petitioners speak, some of them arguing that the Special Marriage Act is very clearly says two persons, does not, even though later on it was shown that notwithstanding there is a clause that a man should be 21 years as well as a woman should be 18 years. That should be, the various bases. So a lot of that reading down the Special Marriages Act is not going to be the only thing, because there are a number of other acts. Hindu Marriages Act, the Mohammedan Act, there's a whole list and as well as sections of the IPC which will have to be read down and looked at its entirety. So that's something that had been argued. Mr. Kaul for the petitioners said that there have been 3 Supreme Court judgments where it clearly says that same-sex marriages have been referred and gone further ahead. So the time for it to really look at it in a different basis. But I think from the Solicitor General, he said this judgment will have a huge bearing on the society. Let's not cut down anybody's time. There should be arguments for everybody to be heard. And most importantly, consistently said that this has to be determined by Parliament, by the will of the people, and made that point consistently because this has a bearing on the psychology, where of course the petitioners countered. Ultimately, after a lot of deliberations, the 3-judge bench deciding it to make it a constitutional bench and hear this matter on an urgent basis, and that is by the 18th of April, where they'll hear this matter, and hopefully we will see, as you said, the final answer to this issue one way or the other.
And I suppose, it has been said in court, Sunil, that the argument of the centre, besides what they've said so far, is that there needs to be legislation on this, and therefore it needs to move away from the courts and it has to move to Parliament. So that's clearly the line, one of the key lines of argument that they'll take. I mean, we can be sure of that.
Yeah, so that's been the bone of contention. But, ultimately, we have seen the Supreme Court decide and use its powers on many cases. If, for example, going down on 377, Section 377 of the IPC, how did it do it? Because it was on the, on the freedom of expression, on the right to life. And it's on that basis that these arguments will continue to be heard, and it's in those clauses that they will intervene. Sure. So it is definitely something that has to be looked at in its entirety. It has far-reaching legal as well as constitutional implications, and definitely, as you rightly pointed out, the Supreme Court will hear all sides from the government, which wants to take a position, as they said, to be determined by the will of the people and by the parliament, so that it looks at it in that perspective, and the legislature's role is to determine this matter. But as I said, we have been seeing a number of cases. Much will depend on those legal arguments that are put forward before that 5-judge bench who will hear this entire matter.